Hello everyone and welcome to Spokel's live webinar, Learn How I Write Blog Posts That Get Read by Thousands. My name is Sarah Burke. I'm the content marketer and writer and manager and everything over at Spokel. I'm going to be your presenter today. So let's get right into it because this is a bit of a long webinar. I have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to dive right in. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to start off with social intelligence on the web, and that's just getting to know your environment and know your audience and your allies and your competition. And then we're going to go through the writing process, which is obviously the longest part of this webinar because it's really the actionable part. It's really what gets your blogs read by a lot of people. So that's kind of what I want to dive into a lot today. So the writing process is going to be kind of the center of this entire webinar. And then I'm going to go into social, more social, because it's very, very important. That's all just about social media, commenting, talking with your audience and actually being social, like as you would off the web, but how to do that on the web. And then I'm going to go in a little bit about organization, not too much. I just kind of want to talk about that in terms of how it can help you get your blog posts read by thousands and how it can make you more productive. So that's why I've thrown that in there. Okay, so let's get straight into getting in the know and social intelligence. So social intelligence is defined as a person's competence to understand his or her environment optimally and react appropriately for socially successful conduct. We all know this, and we all know how to do this in a certain way in person. And that's, that's through vocal cues, that's through body language. But on the web, it gets a little bit more difficult because, we don't have these people standing in front of us. So it's how to be socially intelligent on the web. And it gets a little bit harder. And that's kind of why you get so much content talking about how to get to know your audience, et cetera, because how do you get to know somebody if they're not physically there with you? So there are three different types of people or different groups that you need to learn how to identify, and that's your audience, your allies, and your competition. So I'm just going to go through these three types with you right now and just like walk through with you on how to best get to know these groups of people. So you should have a general idea who your audience is from your business plan. That's the first place you go to when you're creating your business in general, when you're creating your blog in general, your business blog, your online business, whatever it is, it's your business plan. And that's just who your service is for. You don't create a service or a product without knowing who it's for. So you'll have some idea, even if you've never verbalized it, you'll have some idea who the service is for and what problems it solves. And you'll also know why it's different. Why do we need this service? Why do we need the business? What makes it special and what makes it what makes you think it's going to succeed? So that's your first kind of touch point on how you know your audience or who you know your audience will be. The next part is research, and we kind of underestimate Google for this, but Google is really, really powerful, and I just want to mention it here because it's super important to figuring out who your audience is. So all you have to do is look into your industry, look at what content's being created. Why is it being created? Who's your audience? Who does your competitors think your audience are? Who's in the market to purchase your services or your products? And then you're going to be creating a customer profile. So the demographic information, but also the psychographic information. So looking at your customer psychology and their interests and their hobbies and stuff like that. And the idea is you get a customer profile in the end that you can really use to inform your content. And by that, I mean, you don't just know their age and their gender and their location, et cetera, but you know what they want to be reading and what kind of style of writing they like as well, and what their interests are. So the best example I can think of this, I had to explain this and like kind of, hit home with it, is like brands like Skittles, who really know their audience really, really well. And, they know their audience likes to, for example, play games. So in a lot of their marketing, when they're marketing Skittles, there's skateboarding, there's rollerblading, there's all this kind of really action, young teenager vibe to it because they know their audience so well. They know their interests and their hobbies. So they know that will ring true to them. So it's the same with your customer profile. If you know what your customers' interests and hobbies and values are, you can work with them when you're writing to make a really, really good connection. But in saying that, what you really need to do is figure out where you can hear your customer's voice. So this is how you really get to know your audience, not just their demographics, but you need to get to know them almost in person, but online. So this is where the social intelligence comes in. So I just ask yourself, where can you hear your customer's voice? I love the comment sections. That's where I kind of spend a lot of my time. I'm going to say lurking, but I don't always lurk. I comment a lot as well, but I use comment sections for, like, you know, other blogs in my industry, and I will read the blog and I'll go down, and obviously with intentional commenting, but I always read through those comments as well. Especially when I was just starting out, I would just read these comment sections so much, because they are people I want to be writing for as well. They're, you know, if it's an industry specific blog, that's who I want to be writing for as well. So I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what their problems are with the blog post. I want to know what they like about the blog post. I want to know what if they have any questions about the blog post. I really want to just get to know what they're saying. And obviously, when your blog is kind of, you know, getting a lot of traction, you'll start getting comments as well, and read those comments and get to know your customers from that, and that's get to know your readers from that. And if they have any questions, et cetera, that will inform your content as you progress. The second place that you really get to know your audience is obviously your social media platforms. That's where your audience goes to socialize. So that's where you should be quite active on to socialize with. So some people are like, oh, you have to be on Facebook, you have to be on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. I like to suggest choosing one platform that you think your audience is really, really into, and, you know, really dedicating a lot of time to that. And then maybe having other platforms that are kind of as a you know, like you put your content on, but you might not be as active on. So find out where your audience is, find out what works best for your industry, and really concentrate on one platform, and obviously have a presence on the other ones. But I would really suggest, you know, putting a lot of energy into one platform as well. And feedback and emails is obviously really important. Customer reviews, surveys, live support, and live chat. People forget about that. That's where you are literally being asked the questions, and that's where you are literally giving the answers. If one person is asking you a question, that means there are 100 people behind them asking the same question that just haven't typed it out to you. So if one person is asking the question, the chances are other people have the same question. So live chat and live support are so important for that. And, you know, that happens in comment sections and social media as well. Don't get me wrong, but I just mean with live support and live chat, like you're actually having this conversation with them. So they're really, really important kind of sources to get to know your audience, and also to get to know your audience well enough so that you're writing posts that answer their questions. And then forums as well. If there are a lot of forums in your industry, try join them, try kind of contribute to some of the conversations that are having, that people are having. You know, it's not about plugging your own business in these forums. It's not about, you know, just throwing your blog posts at people, but it's actually about having conversations and just asking questions and answering questions. So if there are any forums in your industry, I would suggest going ahead and joining them and seeing if you can, you know, generate some conversations around them. So an ally, so my definition of an ally is a person or an organization that cooperates with or helps another in a particular activity. And you might be kind of like, you know, why are you saying ally? This sounds like an influencer. And that's kind of what it is. So, you know, the influencer is a person who has an influential personality. So they have the power to produce, you know, changes or actions or behavior, changes in opinion of others. They're influential. But the reason I say ally and not influencer is because not all your allies are going to be very, very influential. Some of your allies are just going to be supporters, and they're just people who encourages you and approves of you, and, you know, really like what you're doing. And I think they're equally as important as an influencer. And that's kind of why I don't want to just talk about influencers right now. I want to talk about your supporters and your influencers, they're all going to be your allies. Obviously not all influencers are going to be your allies, only influencers that, you know, agree to help you or work with you or collaborate with you are, but that they are part of your allies when they do. So why get to know your allies? The first thing and the most important thing is the relationship building. So if they're influencers, it's really important to have a good relationship with them, because if you know you collaborate with them, they might share your links. They might link to your blog post in one of their articles, which, you know, gets you ranked better in Google or higher in Google. The next thing, yeah, the promotion across other channels. So if they like what you're writing, and if you're in front of their eyeballs and they know who you are, they're reading your blog posts, and if they like it, they're going to share it, and that's, you're touching their audience as well as yours now. So that's amazing. Word of mouth advertising, and that's why I'm talking about allies and not influencers here. So word of mouth advertising is people actually just talking about you, people saying, oh, I really like this post. You know, the amount of times we've been you know, alerted to a new link being shared on the web to Spoke, and we go in and we look at it, and it's from a forum, and just people talking about it, just people being like, oh, I really like this blog. This post is really useful for what you're talking about. And you're like, this is great. These are my allies. These are people who like what I'm doing, are, you know, bookmarking this work and sharing it with other people. And that's the most valuable kind of advertising and marketing that you can get. Sorry. And then comments on your blog posts. So I don't know about you guys, but when I'm looking at a blog post and, you know, I'm after reading it and I see there's like 100 comments, I'm like, whoa, this is generating conversation. This is like really good. And sometimes very cleverly, they've had the amount of comments on the top of the blog post, quite a lot actually. And I see the 100, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely reading this, you know, and it gets me really excited because, like, what's the buzz? What? It's really exciting, right? So when you like nurture your allies and get to know your allies really well, they'll leave comments on your blog posts, and that generates a lot of buzz around it. So the next bit is, or the next reason to get to know your allies is because they're vocal and they speak for the larger audience. So when you get to know your allies quite well, you generate a relationship with them, and it's much easier for an ally, for someone who feels like they know you, to say something to you. So that could be a bad thing, it could be a good thing, you don't know, but either way you should know, and that's the point. And then you can also ask them for favors, and I don't mean, oh, you know, can you go and pick me up a sandwich? I'm talking about if you are launching a new product, hey, would you do me a favor and just have a look at this, or et cetera, especially if you get to know them really, really well. You know, you can generate this like relationship with them where you're both doing it, you know, with each other as well. They might ask you for favors, et cetera, but you're generating this relationship that really works for both of you, and it's really nice. Oh, and then again, blog comments equals popularity. So you comment on their post, they comment in yours, and get that relationship going. I said it twice, but I'm obviously thinking it's very important. It's early. Okay, so how to spot your allies in your audience. So there's a whole bunch of ways, and I've just kind of thrown out 5 from my real life experiences of this, but there are obviously like way more than this. These are just things that happened to me that I've been like, okay, these are my allies, these are people who are supporting me. They'll try to connect with you in an unconventional way, and that just means they might direct message you on, you know, a platform that you're not normally on. So like, you know, I'm always kind of on, like for Spoke, we're on Google Plus and Twitter a lot. But they might message you on Facebook, for example, or LinkedIn, and, you know, like privately direct messaging you. So that's like, they obviously want to connect with you as a person rather than just this writer, this anonymous writer that's on the web. They see you as a person. They really, really like what you're doing. They will leave comments on your posts regularly. So they're, you know, always generating conversation with you. You're always going back to their blog if they have one, and you're commenting as well. And you're kind of, you know, you're building that relationship up. The one I really like is when they take your advice on board and they come back and they tell you the results, because that's really, you know, that's creating a relationship that isn't just founded on, I'm listening to what you're saying. So thanks for the read. And moving on from that, it's someone who's saying, I'm not just listening to what you're saying, I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm taking it on board, and I'm doing something with my life based on that. So you're really touching their life at that point, which is interesting, and which is fantastic. And it just makes you feel like it's all worthwhile. But not just that, it will inform your blog post as well. So if they take your advice on board and they come back and they're like, you know, the way you said this, well, what? That didn't work. All of a sudden, you know, you need to go update that blog post. You need to figure out how to make it work for people, which I think is really interesting. You know, it's kind of almost like a case study. And then the last two are, they might reach out to you and try to collaborate with you. They might say, hey, you want to write a guest post for us? Or hey, can I write a guest post for you? Or hey, I'm doing this, I'm writing this ebook, can I interview you, etc. Or they might, or you reach out to them. So you send them an email saying, I'm doing this and this and this. Would you be interested in contributing or collaborating or whatever it is? And they are happy to help, or they're happy to work with you. And for example, I don't know if you've seen, but I did a collaboration at New Year's with 25 marketing experts, and I just emailed a whole bunch of people, and I, you know, got emails back being either agreeing or not agreeing, or, you know, sometimes not getting any emails back, which is fair enough. You know, people are busy, but through those emails, you can have these great conversations. So if they're giving you, you know, like answers to questions, you're like, oh, I love those answers, blah, blah, blah. And you know, generate the conversation. Or, you know, when I was emailing them, I would always do some research. So if I could find out what their hobbies were, I could, you know, tell them, I really liked what you were doing with that. Like, I really liked your, say, DIY videos that you created 2 years ago. What happened to them? You know, something like that, and generating a conversation and getting to know these people. And it's not just a nice thing to do, but it is networking. You know, it's online networking. So that's kind of how you spot your allies, is really through networking. Oops, skipping through those. But there are other ways to more directly find these influencers as well. And I just want to talk quickly about BuzzSumo. And I'll be mentioning this later because I swear I'm not paid to talk about BuzzSumo, but sometimes I feel like I am because I use this a lot. But I really, really like it. So you can actually use BuzzSumo to find influencers. So just in the top tab, just go to BuzzSumo.com. And on the top tab, you'll see that it says top content and influencers. Click on the influencers tab, and then you can just search in your industry. So a keyword or a topic in your industry, and you'll find a whole bunch of people who are quite influential on social media. And what I really, really like about this is if you see the filter types here, it says bloggers, influencers, companies, journalists, and regular people. You can just, you know, uncheck them all and just choose whatever one you want. You can keep them all there if you like. And what gets even better, the creme de la creme, is that you can actually click this, ignore broadcasters. And what that is people who have less than a 4% reply ratio. So they reply less than 4% of the time, which means that they are just probably automating a lot of their social media. They're not really online. So especially if you're doing a collaboration or you're really looking to build relationships with these people, it's kind of a really good way to filter those guys out and just feel like, well, you're not really online, so let's just not waste our time, if you know what I mean. So I really love that feature. I don't know if it's something that everyone uses, but just as a little top tip, I would suggest clicking that and ignoring broadcasters, because that's a one-way conversation that you are not a part of. And so the last group of people you need to get to know is your competition. You need to get to know your competition, because you need to look at what they're doing wrong so that you can do it right, and you need to look at what they're doing right so you can do it better. That's the very, very simple way of putting it. But you need to be better than your competition, and that's whether they're doing something wrong or they're doing something right. If you're in Spokel, you'll know you might be familiar with the Convince and Convert tab, and you can just kind of, stalk is not the right word, follow. You can follow your competition and on Twitter, and you can look at the negative tweets and the positive tweets that they've been receiving, and you can kind of figure out where they're going wrong and where they're going right. So for example, I recently, actually it wasn't recently, it was like 4 months ago. I always say recently, but it was probably about 4 months ago. I saw that one of our competition was getting a few tweets about getting subscribers getting way too many emails from them and unsubscribing. So I was like, well, I'm going to write a blog post about email marketing practices, and hopefully those people will see that and they'll be like, oh, these guys don't do it, or they shouldn't do it since they're talking about not doing it. So that's just an example of that. If you're in Spokel, obviously use the convince and convert tab for that. But if you're not in Spokel, you just literally go onto your competition's social media platforms and look at what they've been doing. And if everything's going well, if they're sharing content that's getting a lot of traction, if they're getting a lot of people being like, oh my God, I love this new feature, you're like, okay, well, I need to get that feature too, and I need to do it better. So getting to know your competition will really force you to be on your A game. So we're moving to the writing process. Like I said, this is the largest section of our webinar, because this is the really actionable part. This is what counts. So I'm going to be talking about research, fearlessly brainstorming, finding your writing style, and acting as your own editor. So this is the very simplified writing process, and the reason I've kept it in there is because while it's simplified, it's very, very consistent. So you're always going to touch all of these processes as you're writing. And then just having a simplified process there for you to understand and know that you're going to go through it, I think really helps to shape your writing as you're doing it. So that you're pre-writing. You're not just wasting time on the internet. You're actually doing research. While you're writing, you're actually doing the writing. While you're looking over that writing, you're revising. And when you publish, that you're publishing it for a reason. So it's all very actionable. It gives you some shape and structure to your writing process. So the first stage is obviously pre-writing, and that's researching and brainstorming. So researching, probably the first word that's coming in your head when I say research is keywords. So I'm going to start with that. The very basics of keywords is that you're looking for a keyword or a key phrase that has a lot of search queries. So a lot of people are like asking questions about this, are searching for it in Google and looking for answers, but nobody's giving them, or the answers aren't great, or they're not really on topic. So everyone's searching it, no one's answering these questions. That means that you should be answering those questions. That means that if you answer those questions, you're going to be #1, or you're going to be at least in the top 10 of the Google search engine result page, and that's exactly where you want to be. So if you're on Spokel, we, you set up a keyword campaign, you get a whole bunch of keywords that are related to your industry, and then we score them for you. So green means go. So that just means that a lot of people are searching it, not a lot of people are answering those questions. So you go ahead and you write a blog post based on that keyword, and you should rank well for it. Red means don't even bother. Everyone's writing about it, or nobody's looking for it. It's not worth your time. And then orange, yellow, amber means that proceed with caution. Just like a stoplight, proceed with caution. It's okay. It's not great. Is there a way you can make it better? So that's just generally how the research and keywords, keyword research in Spokel works. There is also the keyword planner in Google AdWords. That you just go to Google AdWords and go to keyword planner and you'll find it. You're probably all familiar with this, but just to kind of go through it, it's not just in Spokel. If you don't have Spokel, you can still use this and it's fine. And again, you're just looking at competition. Is there a lot of people, writing about this topic, and average monthly searches? So are a lot of people searching for the topic? And you can figure out there if there's any gap in the content on the web that you can take advantage of and write about. And this is free. Like the suggested bids are, just suggested. Like you don't have to pay for anything. You can just use this information for your own for your own content creation without ever having to pay Google for anything. And speaking of Google, so after you do your keyword research and you know kind of what topic you want to be talking about, just go onto Google and you do some research. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I have a specific method for it that I think is really effective. And it looks something like this. So I search Google for my keyword, and I will take the top 10 search results. And what I do is I right click, very important, right click, not left click, and open each of those top 10 results. And this is just research. This is just getting a really good idea of what's on the web and what information is there available that can inform my blog post. And I'll go into each of these and, I'll read the title. If it's super relevant, okay, fantastic. Read through the blog post, skim it. Is it really good? Yeah. If it's really good, keep it open and move to the next one. Again, do the same thing with each of them. Everything that's like great and really on topic, you keep open, and then you can kind of go back and read them, copy and paste information that you think will work really well with your content. Any data that they have, follow it if they've linked to it. If they didn't link to it, follow or try to find out where they got that from, because that content's probably really good too. Yeah, just kind of go through everything and get a really good sense of the topic you're covering. And that's the top 10. That's kind of every time someone else looks at that query, that's what they're getting too. So it's a really, you should really know what they are already looking at. And it's not just to get information, it's also actually to make sure that you know your competition well enough to know how to write better than them. So if they're doing, for example, I don't know if you can read that, but like one of them, the top result is how to get people to read your blog 9 steps with pictures. Is there a way that you can do that better? Can you say how to get people to read your blog 8 steps with video? I don't know. Can you do it better? Can you do it differently? Can you do it in a more interesting and engaging way? So yeah, I would always do the top 10 there. And after I do that, sometimes I will need to do a more specific query as well. So for example, if I'm doing SEO services in British Columbia, after doing the first top 10 searches with that keyword, I might want to do SEM services, for example, in British Columbia. And I might search that and see if there's any good content I get from that as well. And again, it's about leaving these tabs open, looking for the information, having them there and available, reading through them quite well, skimming the ones that you don't think are effective, and don't waste time on them. So after I do that and I have the posts that I really, really like and I've read those and I'm happy with them, I always keep the tabs open because I want to be linking back to these people. Like if I ever have a source or a piece of data, I always want to link back to it. So I tend to leave those open as well. But after I do that, I go back to BuzzSumo. Again, I do not get paid to talk about these guys, I promise, but I just really like them. And what I really like about BuzzSumo is that when you're creating content, Google's great for research and their algorithms are so complex, but BuzzSumo will tell you kind of what's popular on social media, which I think is really, really important, because it's not just about answering questions. It's about being engaging and being interesting and, getting people to share your content and being very social with it. So BuzzSumo will give you that side of things. So again, put your keyword in the search box here, and you'll find a lot of content coming up. Ranked by how many social total shares they have. And as you can see, there's only 2 here. And the reason is, if you look down at the filter, I've clicked past week. I think it defaults to past year, which, I would always do that query as well. But I kind of like to narrow it down to the past week, past 24 hours, because I want to see what has been written recently. I think that's really, really important when you're creating content. What is going on about that topic right now? Is there anything you're missing? Is there anything in the debate that is new? Should you address that? Are people sharing a lot of that? So, for example, SEO, and you're reading all these amazing articles of SEO, and they're all telling you how to do it, what's the best practices, et cetera, et cetera. And if you, write your keyword SEO services in BC here, and you do past 24 hours, past week, past month, or whatever, and you read that, and then you find some content that says, SEO services in British Columbia are declining, there's not as many, blah, blah, blah. That's some extra research that you're putting into your blog post that's really, really, really relevant because it's right now. So it's really, really important, in my opinion anyways, to look at the very relevant and very timely pieces as well, to make sure that you are giving your audience the most up-to-date information that you possibly can. And you can actually do this. You can on Google, you can use their search tools as well to get more timely content. There is a way on their toolbar to say, or to select the option of time. So most recent posts being put up there. So that's a really interesting way, especially if it's a very timely topic that you're talking about and it's an ongoing debate. It's a really good idea to look up what has been posted more recently. So after you do your research, you have your keyword, you have your information, it's all in your head. You need to put it down on paper. You need to put it somewhere visual. And what I do is I like to brainstorm, and I call it fearlessly brainstorming because the amount of times I've asked someone, like, oh, who are having maybe writer's block, and I'm like, do you brainstorm? And they're like, yes. I'm like, can I see it? And they're like, yes. And then it's, very niche writing on a lined page, and it's two, 3 words. I'm like, okay, somebody can't even brainstorm fearlessly. Somebody is afraid that someone's going to see their writing. Maybe they're not pushing themselves enough. And maybe they're just not giving brainstorming the time of day. They don't think it's that effective. I've been brainstorming. I just realized the other day, or 2 weeks ago when I was doing this, I've been actually practicing this type of brainstorming for about a decade now. So I was doing it when I was starting out in university, when I was doing creative writing classes, because it would really, really push me to think outside the box. So I am the biggest advocate for this. It's so important to brainstorm and brainstorm effectively and fearlessly. So what I do is that I set myself a time limit that's quite high. Right now I do 15 minutes because after about 10 minutes, I am struggling. And that's because I've been doing it for so long that it's like, your brain's like a muscle, and I can brainstorm really, really effectively in a short amount of time. But if you don't brainstorm very diligently, set yourself the higher time limit. Set yourself about the 30-minute limit. And by setting yourself a limit, I do mean putting a timer on and then actually setting a limit, like a timed limit. This will put you under pressure to, 1, get a lot out, or 2, not stop until the time is up. And that's really important. And I use a pen and paper. I go old fashioned. I close the curtains, I have a pen and paper, and I get rid of all my distractions. And that means phone, pets, people, anything. And I literally take my pen and paper, and even on my paper, I just use a very, very cheap sketch pad from like a Dollarama. There's no lines on it. I want it to be messy. I don't want to have anything trying to control my thoughts here, not even lines on a page. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I want a blank piece of paper. And I take that blank piece of paper, I write the topic that I'm, my keyword or my topic word or my topic sentence in the center. And there is no better way to say this, but I just word vomit. Like, if you could vomit just words on a page, that is what I do. So it kind of looks like this. Again, it's a blank page, circle in the middle. I'm not trying to be particularly neat. I'm just kind of writing a lot of things down. I will, firing out ideas quickly and messily, and then I mark ideas I really like. So you'll just see like a random, I don't even know what that mark means anymore. It's just, I think I'm trying to do a star, but I just kind of mark things. I circle them, I like underline them, I bullet point things. I just let my brain make all these connections. And sometimes they're really, really abstract, and you'll read over this afterwards because, you know, you're just in this kind of like time constraint where you're just like, oh my God, I'm just writing whatever, or there's another 10 minutes left. What else do I write? And you're just writing words down and making word associations, and it doesn't make any sense. But that's fine. And then when your time is up, you just look over it and you have some amazing ideas, you know, especially in the last 5 minutes or the last 10 minutes of your brainstorming session. You will just be kind of like, oh, wow, I never thought it. That's really interesting. And you'll write that down. You'll circle it and you'll underline it. You'll say this is what makes this blog post really interesting. So I definitely advocate brainstorming and doing it fearlessly. You know, doing it in a time, having a timer and doing it on a piece of paper, going old school. Don't get distracted. I really, really suggest getting that out there for creating blog posts that kind of have that wow factor. And then after you do that, you get straight into your writing. And by straight into your writing, I do mean creating a headline. So I like to create the headline first. One, I'm actually really excited about my content at this point. I'm like, okay, I like what I'm writing. It's really, really good. What am I saying exactly? And that's when I'll create the headline. And it just informs the rest of my content. It solidifies exactly what I want to be saying. And it, while I'm writing it, ensures that I stay on topic. So I'm like, oh, wait, my headline wasn't talking about SEO services in Canada. I was talking about British Columbia. So what am I doing? You know, especially if you're writing long form, sometimes you need that kind of prompt to just stay on topic. Like my blog posts, I think on average are 1,500 words, which is quite long. And I do need something to kind of keep me in check. And that's my headline. And it also makes sure that I answer any questions that I set out to answer. So I really like Upworthy's 25 headlines, and I've actually started doing this on a regular basis. Before I was doing, I think it was 10, no, it was 15. I was writing 15 headlines. So I had the general idea that, you know, I should be writing a lot of headlines, but I've actually upped it to 25, and I'm still doing the 25. Most recently because I've just realized how important headlines are. It really forces you outside of the box. I don't know if anyone here has tried it. If you have, you're probably thinking that it's the most frustrating practice ever. It makes you feel like you're going crazy. It's like sometimes you get to this point where you're just like, I can't actually think of another headline. There are no other headlines. I've literally written every single headline that I possibly can for this. And then you create, you know, 5 other headlines, and, you know, one of those are amazing. You're like, okay, that's crazy. And other times it's, you know, you write 25 headlines and you go back to the very first one. You're like, you know, it's simple, it's descriptive, and that's what I needed. So, oh well. So it kind of works both ways. Sometimes you have these amazing, really cool headlines, and sometimes you're like, no, it's getting too off topic and I want the simple one. So it works both ways. But the point is that you're always pushing yourself and making sure that you can find the best headline that you think is possible. And just as a little mention here, if you're on Spokel, we do the headline A/B testing now. So you do the 25 headlines, but you use 2 of them. So you use your 2 favorite ones, which is amazing, because I'm always, when I'm doing this, like my headlines, I'm like, oh, I really like this one, but that one's good too. So now you can actually test that and see which ones work. And if you're not in Spokel, there are ways to just A/B test your headlines anyways, that I'm sure you guys have your own resources for. And this is from I wrote a blog post recently on headlines, and this is the image I used for it. And I'm just talking about how only 2 out of 10 people will read past your headline, and that's kind of the average. And the idea is that, you know, that's not many people. Like, you want more than 2 out of 10 people coming into your store / and that's my metaphor for reading your blog content. You want more than just 2 people reading your content out of 10. So creating an amazing headline is the way you catch their attention. The 2 out of 10 people who are reading past your headline are probably people who are looking for your content, who are really interested in it anyways. What you want to do is get the 3rd person who isn't particularly interested in your content to actually say to themselves, oh, that does sound interesting. Maybe I do want to talk about it. So that's what that's for. That's what creating your headline is so important for, and creating 25 headlines is so important for. You're trying to grab the attention of that third and fourth and fifth out of 10 people who might not necessarily be looking for your content, but will be attracted by the headline enough to give it a go. And so after that, I then kind of like do a very rough sketch of what my post is going to look like. So I have my headline, and usually it'll be on the back of, you know, my brainstorming page or whatever. I just write a very, very rough sketch of the different subheadings I'm thinking of adding. So I just want to kind of write a note on this as in terms of structure. So I include an introduction and a conclusion, and that just means that my post gets a lot of shape. So I think this is really important in terms of like starting and ending your blog post. And then the body of your content is the meat. So I always try 3 subheadings. Some people do more and some people do less. I think so 3 subheadings is a good compromise. And just to let you guys know, I'm after realizing that I'm going to go over time by a lot. I've just redone this whole webinar. So this is the first time I'm running through it. So I'm going to go over 45 minutes. Feel free to stay, obviously. But if you have to leave or whatever, feel free to shoot me an email. This webinar is going to be recorded, and I will be sending the recording out to you guys in your email, so you'll have the rest of it later as well. So I'm really sorry that I'm going over topic. I did a run through with this, but it's always different when I'm doing it live because I start ranting a little bit. So just let you know that I am going to go over a little bit, and if you leave, I will not be offended. And then step 3, when I'm actually writing the content, is that I write my first draft all the way through. And when I started doing this, it was 3 to 4 hours of sitting down and writing, and it was really, really tough. When you get a little bit of practice, you'll get it down to 2 hours, which is what I'm down to now. And obviously depending on the content. But I give myself no breaks and no phone calls. And no breathing. I'm kidding, obviously. But the point is that I force myself to get into a zone where I tell myself that this amount of time is where I'll be sitting down and writing and nothing else. So I would suggest doing that and kind of setting yourself up at a comfortable desk or whatever and just writing. And then just a quick note on style. I just wanted to talk about just writing for the web and how you kind of come up with your own style. And I just want to talk about it because I get asked this question a lot, and I don't know if there is a foolproof answer, because I always think it comes with practice and trial and error, and it's very like clothes. Something that looks good on somebody else won't suit you. So you need to try different things on and see what works best for you. And just specifically for blogs, read blogs and take note of how they're phrasing things, what works best, what you like about a blog. But you can do this with newspaper and magazines and stuff as well. With online writing, don't be afraid to be funny. Some people are very, very serious and they have very academic writing, which is fine as well. And be colloquial. So again, some people are very academic, but generally you want to be talking to your audience like they're an old friend, which doesn't mean sacrificing good spelling and grammar and syntax, etc. It just means that you're not super formal, so you're breaking down barriers. And then the revision process. I tend to revise about 4 times. So, my first draft is, like I said, the big run through when I get into the zone. And then I go through a second and a third and a fourth draft. And each of those drafts, different things happen at those stages. But the fourth draft is what I want to draw your attention to. And that is the draft where I will, if you're doing this in Word, I go into read mode. And I try to read through the whole blog post without stopping or catching any errors. So if I do, I have to exit read mode, correct, and start again. And I think that's a really good way to kind of run through your content before you publish it. So the publication means that you're done. you just copy and paste your work into your preferred blogging platform. If you're using Spokal, copy and paste into Spokal. Then you add your photos and include your alt tags and your attribution. Make sure you preview it so it looks good. I know this sounds very strange, but I had a weird like virus on my computer at one point, and our formatting was going so strange. And you know, we could catch that because I was previewing it and saying, why is this happening, you know? And then make sure to take into consideration your time zones. So now I'm going to move on to social, and more social. So like I said, the 45 minutes is up now, and I'm really, really sorry that this is too long. I ramble too much, and hopefully you guys can check it out on the recorded video. And this is why webinars are great, because they're recorded. But if you have time, feel free to stay around. I'm going to go through social and organization now. So social, and more social. The reason why I say it 3 times is because it's so important. Obviously, on social media, you want to be sharing your own content. But at the same time, you know, how much do you share? When do you share it? How much should you share your own stuff, et cetera, et cetera? There's all these questions that come up with sharing on social media and engaging on social media. But the general look of sharing your own content on social media is this. It's you publish it, you share it, and then you engage, which is very important. Don't forget the engage part. That means that people are commenting on social media, on Twitter, whatever, about your blog, that you're replying, and that you're having a conversation. And then you measure it. So is it doing well? Not so well? Does it need something? Are people asking a lot of questions? Should you update it? If it's doing really well, I would suggest repurposing it. So only if it's high performing is the note I have there. So if it's doing really, really well, I would suggest repurposing it into another format. So a slide share, or a webinar, or a white paper, or an ebook, whatever it is. Repurpose it, wrap it up in something new. And what happens is, it's not just about you know, getting more eyeballs or getting more people to share or being more viral. It's about widening the net. So if your target audience really likes it, will a larger audience like it if it's more visual? So that's what repurposing is great for. And then again, you publish it again, and you share it again, you engage again. So the 2 questions I keep getting about content distribution is, should I keep publishing the same content over and over? Simple answer is yes. And the second question is, how can I publish content over and over without being on the internet all day long? And the simple answer is a social sharing schedule. If you're on Spokal, you'll know that we have this social sharing calendar, the editorial calendar in there, and you can literally just drag and drop into the calendar and get sharing while you're not on the internet. So if it's 1 a.m. And your audience is awake at 9 a.m. or they're just night owls and they're up at 1, but you need to be asleep, you can schedule your sharing so that stuff is going out at 1 a.m. Like I said, Spokal has this, and this is going to look familiar for anyone who's in Spokal, but there's also Hootsuite, Buffer, IFTT, Social TweetDeck. There's so many of these, you know. So I really like Buffer, actually, and Hootsuite's good too. So I would use either of those if you're not on Spokal. They're perfect for this. And then, so yeah, you should be sharing your content over and over again. Don't just share it once and leave it. Share it over and over again. And you know, the best way to do that is to just rephrase it and not always just have title and link, and just try to be more interesting with how you're sharing it. But you know, to be social, you need to be having a 2-way conversation. It shouldn't just be about you. You shouldn't be just on Twitter going me, 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 me. You should be saying me and these guys and me and these guys and me and these guys. So it's all about kind of generating a conversation about your industry in general. So it's like, oh, here's a blog that I wrote. Ooh, you might also like this because you're into internet marketing or digital marketing. And these guys wrote this, and this is really interesting too. And you're becoming a presence online that people want to follow, because the idea is you're sharing really valuable information that people need, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your own information. And this is just what a content or a curated content might look like. So you create your own comment on it. You have the link to the post there. You have the post title and the source. I won't say you have to put the post title up. Sometimes I will just put comment, the link to the content, and always the source. I would always put the source up if I can. Always a comment and always a link. But post title, you can or you can't, whatever. And then get your name out there by leaving comments on everything. So I was talking about comments before already, and that is literally just about being very active in blog comments, on shares. So if someone's sharing your content, just talking to them about it, on your posts. So people are commenting on your posts, you know, comment back. YouTube, articles, links, webinars, quizzes, surveys, everywhere. Just comment and talk, and even if it's just saying, great work, I really like this, you know, have a conversation, get your name out there and network and be social, because that's what we do in real life. So that's what we should be doing on the web. So here's a quick note on organization. Again, this is just really super quick, but so I just make this in Word, and literally I just use the table function, and I created a blogging calendar for an entire month. So Spoke blog schedule, and then I usually put January, February, whatever afterwards, and I just create an entire schedule of what I want to be saying in that month, or what I want to be writing in that month. And what this is great for is if I come across, like, you know, I know what I'll be writing, I print it out, I put it on my wall, and then when I'm coming across content that I really like, I'll just scribble it back. I'll scribble into the notes or the research where I found that content or where I found that interesting piece of data. And when I come to that day, so like, you know, the Thursday, the 4th or whatever, I will go and I will be like, yeah, okay, I found this 2 weeks ago, and I've made a note for myself there. I'm going to go look at that right now. So I find that really helpful. Whatever works for you, but I really like just creating a table in Word and just having it there. And oh yeah, and create a really, really strict, tight deadline and put yourself under pressure. This is really important for me anyways. It gets me to work. So figure out on a good day, how long does it take you to create a blog post or a graphic or a webinar, etc. And then create a deadline based off of your answers. Why I'm saying on a good day is when you're high performing, how do you perform? And make yourself only have that amount of time to perform every single day. So what you're doing is every day you're saying, perform to your best, perform to your best. You only have this amount of time, so you're gonna have to perform to your best. What happens is your best starts to, or in that time period, you're able to do this on a click of a button. You're able to always perform at that level, and you start to, you know, perform even faster. You start to write even faster. You start creating graphics, webinars even faster. You will start off pretty slowly. When I first started writing my long form blog posts for Spoke, it took me 3 months to get it down from 2 entire days, this is 8-hour days, that's 16 hours, to a day. And that's 8 hours, but in saying that, it's not even 8 hours. I think I spend 4 hours now on the whole thing, depending on the topic, obviously. Sometimes it does go to 8 hours. Sometimes I'm working very long days because, you know, I just want to get really into the topic. But I think on average, it's probably about 4 hours now. So that is because, well, practice, putting my deadlines down, being very strict with myself, and putting myself under pressure. And then again, what I said earlier, getting yourself in the zone. So deadlines is really, really important to creating great content really, really quickly and productively and effectively. And then I would also organize your computer, and this is saving time. The thing is, you're very, very busy. You need to create this content. Everyone's creating much more content than you are. Every minute you don't create content, more content's being created. It is competitive. Don't waste time always having to run around looking for something. Get organized. Actually spend time doing this. Take an hour of your day, schedule it into your planner, and say, I'm organizing my computer, and do it. And when you see it getting disorganized, do it again. Schedule and get it organized. Really, it does pay off. The amount of time that you put into organizing it is nothing in comparison to the amount of time you lose trying to find it when it's not organized. So that's it for today. Again, thanks to anyone who stayed around for the extra 10 minutes there. Sorry if I rambled on a little bit too much, but just to kind of conclude, again, I love conclusions because it just sums everything up for you guys. The 4 key takeaways I want you to leave with is to get to know the people who will likely be reading and sharing your content, and get to know them really, really well. To write fearlessly because you'll be revising anyways. And only when you're ready, your content will go out. So just get in the zone and write fearlessly and revise and revise and revise. Don't just sell your own content on social media, sell advice and help. Be a brand, be a business that people want to follow because you're useful and because you're awesome, not because you're just promoting your own content. And then finally, get organized. You'll be a lot more productive and a lot less stressed out. So thank you so much, everyone who came to the webinar today. If you have any questions, I'm going to open up the floor now. Oh, my Q&A isn't working for some reason. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. And I will answer them. I will call them out and answer them. Oh, why isn't my chat working? Here we go. Oh, now my chat's not working. Oh, what did I do? Okay, well, Google, or yeah, Webinar Jam has just broken. So sorry about that. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I will definitely get back to you, no problem. And again, thank you so much. If you want to read any of the blogs that I mentioned today, it's just getspoken.com/blog. And yeah, any questions, shoot me an email. I will definitely get back to you. If you want to revise this webinar later, it will be sent to your email. The replay link will be sent directly to your email, so don't worry about that. And I hope you all have amazing days, and I will hopefully talk to you again.